Riches don't belong to the hardest workers. If they did, teachers and laborers would be billionaires. But they're not. Wealth follows power. It always has. The ones who rise are the ones who dare, who control, who bend the rules before anyone else even knows they can. Machiavelli revealed this truth centuries ago. Fortune rewards the bold, not the obedient. Most people stay poor because they're trapped playing the wrong game. The real question is, are you ready to stop serving and start ruling? The oldest lie in the world. If hard work made people rich, slaves would have been kings. Yet that's the lie most people still believe. If I just work harder, one day I'll be rich. They think wealth is a prize for sweat, sacrifice, and endless hours. But take a look around. The hardest workers in society are rarely the richest. Construction workers break their backs every day. Nurses lose sleep to care for others. Teachers pour their souls into their students, and yet, they struggle to pay rent. If effort were the secret, every one of them would be living in mansions. But they're not, because the system doesn't reward effort. It rewards control. The servant and the master. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He said, "The man who works for another is always a servant. The man who makes others work for him is always a master." That's the cold truth most people never face. The poor trade time for money. The rich trade leverage for money. That's why a CEO earns more in a day than an employee earns in a year. Not because they work harder, but because they control the system that multiplies effort. That's the illusion of hard work, a psychological trap designed to keep people obedient. Society programs you to believe that if you just keep grinding, someday you'll make it. Go to school, get a job, save, retire. But that path isn't wealth, it's survival. You spend your best years building someone else's empire, and in the end, you get just enough to scrape by. That's not freedom. That's a cage disguised as security. The psychology of power. Here's where human nature kicks in. People are wired to follow leaders, not equals. The reason the rich rise so fast is that they claim positions of command, not because they're smarter or luckier, but because they project certainty. They make bold moves. They stand tall when others hesitate. And once they do, others follow, giving them their time, money, and trust. That's how wealth multiplies, not through labor, but through leadership. The rich don't just work, they command movement. Meanwhile, the hard worker stays invisible. He clocks in, clocks out, hustles harder, but no one follows him. No one invests in him. No one sees him. He's stuck in an endless loop, trading time for crumbs. The cruel truth? Time is limited. Effort alone will never buy freedom. Why most people stay broke? Most people never escape because they're addicted to labor. They think if they just grind longer, they'll get ahead. But hard work without power only builds wealth for someone else. Every extra hour worked strengthens the master's castle, not the servants. The rich understand one law: control creates wealth. If your decisions don't move money, you're still just a pawn. And pawns get sacrificed in every game. Look closely at the people who own everything. Do they work harder than the poor? No. They work differently. They focus on ownership, not labor. On leverage, not sweat. That's why their wealth compounds while others stagnate. It's not about working more. It's about working with control. The harsh lesson: stop worshiping hard work as the road to riches. It's not. Hard work might keep you alive, but it will never make you free. The key isn't effort, it's power. Power turns hours into empires. Power transforms decisions into income. Power multiplies results. That's why the rich rise fast while the hard-working remain stuck. Hard work alone is noble, but nobility doesn't pay the bills. The modern world doesn't reward who sweats the most. It rewards who commands the sweat of others. And that's the first illusion you must destroy if you ever want to be truly wealthy. Because once you stop confusing labor with power, the entire game changes. Transition from labor to leverage. So here's your first principle to burn into your mind. Hard work does not equal wealth. Control does. The moment your actions stop moving money, you're not playing the game. You're being played. The next level is understanding how that power is built. And once you understand it, you'll see why the rich never chase money. Because money always chases power. And that's where we go next. Part 2. Power creates wealth. People think money rules the world. But if you look closer, you'll see something deeper. Money isn't the ruler, it's the servant. It obeys power. Wherever power moves, money follows like a shadow. That's why the rich don't chase cash. They chase control. When Machiavelli wrote The Prince, he wasn't talking about dollars or gold. He was talking about power, the invisible force that bends fortune to its will. Centuries later, his insight still slices through the noise of modern life. Because here's the truth. The fastest path to wealth isn't stacking paychecks. It's stacking leverage. Effort versus control. Most people make the same mistake. They confuse effort with control. They say, if I just work harder, I'll get ahead. But you can double your hours, triple your hustle, and still stay broke if your work feeds someone else's system. Think about it. The construction worker builds skyscrapers but can't afford to live in them. The nurse keeps the hospital alive but struggles to pay her bills. The teacher shapes the next generation but retires counting pennies. They work harder than billionaires, yet wealth flows past them like water. Why? Because they have no leverage. Their labor is rented, not owned. Machiavelli would have laughed at the hustle culture we glorify today. He'd say, the man who works for another is always a servant. The man who makes others work for him is always the master. And that's the brutal difference between effort and control. Control creates wealth. So here's the principle. Control creates wealth. It's not how much you do, it's what your decisions move. Imagine two men start a restaurant. One becomes the chef, cooking from dawn to midnight. The other handles the systems, hires staff, designs the brand, builds partnerships. At first, it looks like the chef works harder. He's sweating, grinding, burning through hours. But fast forward a few years. The chef is exhausted. The system builder? He's expanding locations. He's earning while he sleeps. Why? Because labor multiplies nothing. Power multiplies everything. That's why the rich don't chase work. They chase leverage. They buy influence, control resources, and create systems where hundreds of people move when they decide to move. That's what wealth truly is. Not money, but motion controlled by you. The psychology of leadership. Humans are wired to follow confidence. We seek leaders who look like they know what they're doing. That's why certainty is magnetic. When someone steps forward with authority, people line up behind them. They give time, loyalty, and even money. And once that flow starts, it becomes a feedback loop. The leader gains power, the power attracts resources, and those resources multiply their wealth even more. It's not just business, it's human nature. Confidence is currency. Control is the interest it earns. Meanwhile, the safe people, the ones waiting for approval, waiting for a raise, waiting for their turn, never rise. They're too busy asking permission from the very people who profit from their obedience. The trap of safety. You've been told your whole life, work hard, save money, play it safe. But what if that's the biggest trap of all? The truth is, safety is expensive. Playing it safe costs you your time, your energy, your potential. You spend decades trading your best years for someone else's dream, and when it's over, you realize the safe path was actually the most dangerous one, because it guaranteed mediocrity. You thought you were building security, you were building a cage. That's why so many people retire broke. They played by the rules, but the game was rigged. They lived their lives in survival mode, never realizing survival was the trap itself. Machiavelli's wisdom flips that entire mindset. He tells us, don't ask, how do I make money? Ask, how do I gain power? Because once you have power, money becomes automatic. Building power in real life. So, how do you build power in a modern world? It's not just about politics or domination. It's about leverage, and there are 4 major forms of it. Own, don't rent. Stop thinking like a worker. Start thinking like an owner. Own businesses, assets, attention. When you own something that works for you, a system, a brand, a product, you've stepped into control. Ownership multiplies your time, even when you're asleep. Influence perception. Machiavelli said appearances often matter more than truth. People treat you as powerful when they believe you are powerful, and that perception itself attracts wealth. Build your image with purpose. Confidence, presentation, and narrative are leverage in disguise. Move where power is not up for grabs. If your environment limits you, escape it. Stop trying to win in a system that's designed to keep you small. New industries, fast-growing markets, untapped opportunities. These are where new power is born. Don't wait for permission. Go where control is available to those who dare. Strike first. Power doesn't wait for consensus. It rewards those who act before the crowd sees the opportunity. Fortune doesn't whisper. It tests your boldness. Move first, and others will follow your momentum. The ripple effect of power. Once you begin applying these ideas, something strange happens. The world starts to bend around you. Money stops running away. It starts to orbit you. Investors reach out. Partners chase your attention. Opportunities find you instead of you chasing them. But here's the twist. The moment you start gaining power, resistance will come. Envy, betrayal, sabotage. They're signs you've entered real territory. Machiavelli would tell you not to fear this. It's proof you've stopped being invisible. When people start plotting against you, it means your influence is being felt. Power always provokes reaction. That's how you know it's real. Wealth, power, and the servant mindset. Most people want wealth without power, comfort without risk. But that combination doesn't exist. Fast wealth requires power. Power demands boldness. So the next time you hear yourself say, "If I just work harder, I'll get ahead," stop. That's the servant's voice speaking. The master's voice asks, "How can I gain control? How can I make my decisions move money, not my muscles?" That's the difference between survival and domination. Control is the currency. At the end of the day, it's not the smartest or the hardest worker who wins. It's the one who understands the true game. Wealth doesn't follow hustle. It follows hierarchy. Control creates wealth. Control over your time, your income, your decisions, your systems. Once you have that, everything else follows naturally. The worker builds someone else's dream. The master designs his own. And when you finally grasp that, when you stop chasing money and start building control, that's when you stop being a servant and start being a player in the real game. Because the ultimate secret of the rich is this: they don't work harder, they work from higher ground. Transition. And once you've built that foundation, once you understand that control is wealth, there's only one force left to master: boldness. Because power without bold action dies in silence. And that brings us to the next principle. Part 3. Fortune favors the bold. Most people wait. They wait for more time, more money, the right connections, the perfect moment. But while they wait, the bold strike. And that's why fortune, just as Machiavelli warned us centuries ago, never rewards the cautious. It belongs to the daring. Here's a hard truth. Hesitation kills wealth. Playing it safe doesn't protect you. It paralyzes you. The world doesn't reward those who tiptoe. It crowns those who leap. Look at history. Every empire, every dynasty, every fortune that ever existed was built by men and women who acted when others froze. They didn't wait for certainty. They created it. Machiavelli compared fortune to a woman, wild, unpredictable, but always drawn to boldness. He said she favors those who act decisively, who seize what they want instead of waiting for permission. That's the law of boldness. Wealth doesn't wait at your door. You have to storm out and take it. Why boldness creates wealth. Let's break down why boldness works. When you move with conviction, even if you don't have all the answers, people assume you do. That confidence makes others believe, invest, and follow. Money flows towards certainty like water down a slope. Doubt, hesitation, and fear are repellents. It's not that bold people always make the right moves. They don't. But they move fast. And speed is a superpower. Because in a world where everyone's waiting for the perfect time, the person who moves first sets the rules. Think of tech founders who launched before trends exploded. Investors who bought when others were scared. Leaders who made decisive moves in uncertain times. They weren't lucky. They were bold. They didn't wait for the stars to align. They acted, and by acting, they made the stars align. The trap of waiting. Most people say, "I'll start when I have more savings. I'll start when the economy is better. I'll start when the timing feels right." But that day never comes, because waiting feels safe, and safety is seductive. Yet every minute spent waiting is another opportunity lost to someone bolder. By the time the cautious are ready, the bold have already built empires. Waiting doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you invisible. And invisible people don't get rich. They don't get followed. They don't get remembered. If you hesitate, you blend into the background. You become another face in the crowd. Replaceable, forgettable, harmless. And no one bets on the harmless. The psychology of fear and action. So what separates the bold from the timid? One thing, their relationship with fear. Most people see fear as a stop sign. The bold see it as a compass. They move toward it. When something scares them, a big risk, a new project, a public move, they know that's where growth lives. Fear is often the signal that you're standing at the edge of power. Psychologists call this loss aversion. Humans are wired to fear losing more than they desire winning. Most people would rather keep $100 than risk gaining $1,000. That mindset keeps them average forever. The rich think differently. They say, if I risk nothing, I gain nothing. If I lose, I can recover. But if I win, I rise fast. That's the Machiavellian difference. The timid protect what little they have. The bold expand into what could be. The speed of wealth. Here's a pattern you'll notice in every story of fast success. Speed beats perfection. Fortune doesn't reward the best plan. It rewards the first mover. Imagine two men standing at the edge of a gold rush. One says, "Let's study the land, analyze the maps, and find the perfect spot." The other grabs a shovel and starts digging. Who ends up rich? The digger. Even if he makes mistakes, he's already moving. While the thinker is perfecting his plan, the bold man has already struck gold. Perfection is a slow poison. It disguises fear as preparation. Bold people understand that imperfect action beats perfect inaction every time. How to cultivate boldness. You can train boldness like a muscle. It's not magic, it's habit. Here's how. Build a bias for action. If an idea excites you, act within 24 hours. Launch the product. Send the message. Make the call. Most people let momentum die in overthinking. Don't. Use fear as fuel. When you feel fear, ask, is this danger or discomfort? Most of the time, it's just discomfort. And discomfort is the doorway to power. Play in fast-moving arenas. Boldness pays more in industries that evolve fast: tech, media, finance, innovation. Slow markets reward caution. Fast ones reward courage. Strike before certainty. The average person waits until they're 100% sure. The bold move when they're 60% sure, because they know waiting kills opportunity. By the time the crowd catches on, it's too late. The cost of boldness. Let's be real. Boldness isn't free. You'll make mistakes. You'll lose sometimes. You'll be criticized, doubted, and called reckless. But here's the paradox. If no one doubts you, you're invisible. And invisibility is the slowest death of all. Machiavelli said fortune despises the timid. That's because the timid never leave a mark. The bold, even when they stumble, are remembered. They move the world forward through sheer audacity. And when you move with that kind of energy, people start moving with you. Teams form. Investors appear. Allies gather. Because boldness is contagious. One decisive person can awaken hundreds of cautious ones. That's how revolutions start. That's how fortunes are built. From bold moves to commanding empires. At the beginner level, boldness is personal. You take the risk. You make the move. You push through fear. But at the advanced level, boldness becomes multiplied through others. True leaders don't just act boldly, they inspire boldness. They make entire teams move with conviction. They shift markets. They change industries. That's when boldness turns into empire building. Because while the timid wait for opportunities, the bold create them, and then command armies of people to execute their vision. That's how power compounds. The real cost of waiting. Let's put it simply, the bold may stumble, but the cautious never rise. Every second you hesitate, someone else takes what could have been yours. The client, the contract, the opportunity, the audience, and by the time you look up, it's gone. The world doesn't slow down for hesitation. It rewards motion. Wealth loves speed. Fortune favors the bold. That's not just a quote, it's a law. If you act, you might fail. But if you don't act, you've already failed. The transition. So remember this: the bold move fast, the timid move last. The bold take risks, the timid make excuses. The bold build wealth, the timid watch it happen. And once you start living boldly, there's one more force you need to master. The secret weapon that the rich use to move faster than everyone else: leverage. Because boldness gets you started, but leverage multiplies your reach. That's where we go next. Part 4. Leverage, the secret weapon of the rich. Most people push with their bare hands and wonder why nothing moves. The rich? They find a lever, and with one push, they move mountains. That lever is called leverage. And it's the hidden engine behind fast, unstoppable wealth. Here's the question: why does one man grind for decades while another rises in a single year? The answer is leverage. Leverage lets you make one move and get 10 results. It's the art of multiplying effort, money, and influence, of turning small actions into massive impact. Without it, you crawl. With it, you fly. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He knew rulers never fought battles alone. They used armies, alliances, fear, and reputation as extensions of their power. The same principle drives every modern fortune. The rich don't use their hands, they use levers. The 4 pillars of leverage. There are 4 main kinds of leverage: money, people, knowledge, and attention. Once you master these, your wealth stops depending on your time. 1. Money leverage. The poor say, "I can't start until I have enough money." The rich say, "Whose money can I use?" That's the difference between stagnation and acceleration. The rich understand that money is a soldier. It follows commands. If you fear it, it serves someone else. If you command it, it builds your empire. They use loans, investors, and partnerships as fuel. They know every dollar can work for them if they control where it goes. That's why the investor grows richer even while others panic. Their money is a worker, not a hostage. Money leverage means using capital strategically. The goal isn't to save, it's to deploy. 2. People leverage alone. You move like a snail. With others, you move like a storm. Look at every empire, from kings to CEOs to influencers. None of them rose alone. They inspired armies, built teams, gathered followers. That's people leverage. When others believe in your vision, they multiply it for you. Each person you lead extends your reach, your power, your earning potential. The poor say, "I'll do it myself." The rich say, "Who can do this better than me?" That single mindset shift changes everything. Leadership isn't about control, it's about multiplication. When you can inspire, recruit, and direct others, you've tapped into the fastest growth engine in existence. 3. Knowledge leverage. Knowledge isn't power. Applied knowledge is. It's not about knowing more. It's about knowing earlier. Think of investors who recognized tech booms before the world caught on. Entrepreneurs who saw shifts before industries changed. That's knowledge used as a weapon. Knowledge leverage comes from insight. It's learning what others don't know yet, and moving on it before they can. Timing turns information into fortune. But there's another layer: systems, and tools. When you use automation, AI, or technology to multiply your work, that's knowledge leverage too. Every process you automate is time you reclaim. Every tool that saves you hours compounds your results. The worker says, "I'll learn everything myself." The master says, "I'll learn what moves everything else." 4. Attention leverage. This is the new king of wealth. In today's world, attention is currency. Control how people see you, and you control their decisions, their loyalty, and ultimately, their wallets. That's why influencers rise faster than corporations. That's why personal brands can rival companies. Attention is the magnet that pulls every other form of leverage toward you. It converts into opportunities, partnerships, sales, and influence. When people listen to you, you don't chase wealth. Wealth chases you. Machiavelli would have called this the modern version of reputation. Appearances, he said, often matter more than truth. If people believe you're powerful, that belief becomes power itself. The mindset of leverage. Here's where most people fail. They try to do everything alone. They think independence means strength. But in wealth, independence without leverage is weakness. You can't lift the world with your bare hands. You need systems, people, and capital that work while you rest. Machiavelli would have called this the difference between a farmer and a general. The farmer drags his plow, sweating for inches. The general commands an army and moves nations. The rich don't ask, "How do I do this?" They ask, "Who or what can do this for me?" That's the mindset of power. The psychology of leverage. Humans are drawn to strength. When people see you moving with vision, they want to join. They offer help, money, ideas, not because you asked, but because they want to be part of something bigger. That's how leverage compounds. Once momentum starts, it feeds on itself. Success attracts more success. You might think you're getting lucky, but luck is just leverage meeting timing. And once people believe in your rise, they accelerate it for you. That's how movements are born. That's how legacies begin. The cost of ignoring leverage. What happens if you ignore leverage? You burn out. You grind for years while someone younger, less skilled, and bolder passes you in months. You'll watch them succeed and call it luck, but it's not. It's leverage. They use the right tools, the right people, the right systems, while you tried to carry everything on your back. Without leverage, you're trapped in the illusion of hard work. You're sprinting on a treadmill that never moves forward. How to use leverage in real life. Let's make it practical. Use other people's money. OPM. If the opportunity is smart and calculated, don't fear debt or investors. Capital can grow your wealth faster than saving ever will. Build alliances. Partnership beats isolation. A shared empire expands faster than a solo hustle. Split control now to multiply reach later. Invest in high-impact knowledge. Don't just consume information. Learn what gives you an edge. Skills that produce income, influence, or innovation. Capture attention. If no one knows your name, no one can pay you. Build visibility. Share your ideas. Become the signal in the noise. When you apply these, your moves start creating bigger ripples. People call you instead of you chasing them. Investors approach. Clients seek you out. Opportunities magnetize to your name. The Machiavellian twist. Here's what most don't expect. The higher you climb with leverage, the more resistance you face. Rivals will resent you. Old friends may envy you. Competitors will try to sabotage you. That's not failure, it's validation. Machiavelli warned that power always attracts resistance. If no one's trying to stop you, you're not moving fast enough. At advanced levels, leverage isn't just about tools or systems, it's about perception. If you appear powerful, people treat you as powerful. That treatment becomes reality. Your reputation becomes your ultimate lever, one that can move mountains even when you lift no finger. The end game of leverage picture. This. You control money through investors, people through teams, knowledge through insight, and attention through influence. Now you don't just make money, you direct it. You don't just chase opportunities, you create them. You don't just compete, you command. At that point, you're untouchable. Others rely on you more than you rely on them. And when they need you more than you need them, you've already won. That's the Machiavellian path, not slow, cautious wealth, but fast, leveraged power. Because the rich never play the workers' game. They never push with their hands. They move with levers. The core law of leverage. So remember this. The difference between crawling like a snail and moving like a storm comes down to one thing: leverage. Find your lever, and the world will move for you. Because in the real game of wealth, effort is cheap. Leverage is priceless. Transition. But even leverage has an ultimate purpose, something far greater than just wealth. Because power without legacy dies with its owner. So the question becomes, after you've built your empire, after you've mastered leverage and wealth, what remains? That's where the true masters play. Part 5. Legacy. The final game of power and wealth. Getting rich is easy. Staying rich and being remembered long after you're gone, that's the real challenge. Wealth fades, but legacy endures. And legacy, unlike money, is a currency that never dies. Every empire, every dynasty, every fortune eventually faces the same question: will it survive the person who built it? Most people never think that far ahead. They chase quick riches, not realizing that getting rich is only half the game. The true masters, the Machiavellian minds, don't just build wealth, they build legacy. Machiavelli studied rulers who rose fast and vanished faster. Why? Because their power was built on weak foundations: luck, charisma, temporary fortune. But those who built systems, symbols, and stories that outlived them, they became immortal. That's the difference between being rich and being legendary. The layers of legacy isn't one thing, it's a structure with multiple levels, each one reinforcing the next. Let's break it down. 1. The legacy of systems. If your empire depends entirely on you, it dies the moment you stop breathing. But if you build systems, businesses, networks, organizations, your influence keeps working long after you're gone. The king dies, but the throne endures. The founder retires, but the company keeps expanding. That's why true power lies in structure. The system becomes your echo, your second life. The worker's efforts vanish the moment he leaves. The builder's systems keep producing wealth for generations. Every lasting dynasty, from monarchs to modern corporations, follows the same rule: automate power, distribute responsibility, and institutionalize influence. That's how wealth transcends mortality. 2. The legacy of knowledge outlives flesh. The most powerful rulers didn't just accumulate wealth. They wrote laws, doctrines, and ideas that shaped the minds of generations. Leaders write books. Innovators leave blueprints. Philosophers record principles. Entrepreneurs create methods others still follow decades later. That's why Machiavelli's name is still spoken today. His words became his second life. When you pass down knowledge, you don't just leave a memory. You create a manual for future power. The world forgets those who merely worked hard. It remembers those who taught others how to think. 3. The legacy of image. Machiavelli was obsessed with reputation. He understood that perception often outlives reality. Your image, the story told about you, becomes your ghost in history. That's why centuries later, we still speak the names Caesar, Alexander, Rockefeller, Jobs. It's not just their wealth that endures, but the myth attached to their name. Your image is your eternal mask. The more clearly you shape it, the longer it survives. In a digital age, this is even more powerful. Your brand, your words, your creations, they exist forever in the collective memory of the internet. You can be long gone, yet your presence still commands attention. That's legacy in motion. 4. The legacy of influence. True wealth isn't how much you own. It's how many lives you shape. That influence could manifest as businesses that employ thousands, ideas that shift culture, or movements that change industries. Influence is wealth translated into immortality. It's how your existence continues to affect others even when your name becomes legend. At the highest level, this is what every great ruler, thinker, and creator understands. Money is temporary, but influence compounds forever. The trap of short-term thinking. The small-minded chase fast cash. They crave luxury, applause, and validation. They want to look rich instead of building something that lasts. They burn their wealth on symbols of success instead of using success to build symbols that last. The bold build empires. The wise build empires that outlive them. Machiavelli would say that the desire for immortality is human nature, but only the powerful achieve it. Because while the body dies, systems, knowledge, and influence can make your name echo through centuries. That's why kings carve statues. Why founders etch their names into skyscrapers. Why men start movements instead of merely businesses. They all seek the same thing: to bend time. Legacy is not about morality. Here's the Machiavellian twist. Legacy isn't about being good. It's about being remembered. History doesn't ask if you were nice. It asks if you mattered. Some rulers are remembered as heroes, others as tyrants. Both are immortal. Both shaped the world in their image. Machiavelli himself was feared, criticized, even hated in his time. Yet today, his name defines an entire philosophy of power. That's legacy. Being loved or hated isn't the goal. Being forgotten is. How to build your legacy. If you want your power to outlive you, stop thinking small. If your only goal is to pay bills or buy comfort, you'll never escape survival mode. Think in decades, not days. Build systems, not tasks. Seek influence, not attention. Here's the blueprint. Build systems that outlast you. Don't be the only engine in your business or brand. Create processes, leaders, and models that run without you. Protect your name. Your reputation is leverage that never decays. Guard it, shape it, and use it wisely. Your name is your signature on history. Pass down knowledge. Teach, write, record, share your blueprint. Let others learn from your victories and mistakes. Attach your wealth to purpose. Money that only serves you dies with you. Money that serves an idea becomes immortal. Tie your fortune to something greater: innovation, education, creation, impact. Multiply influence, build communities, mentor others, inspire movements. When your influence spreads beyond your direct control, you've already crossed into legacy territory. The psychology of legacy. Humans crave immortality. It's wired into our nature. But while most chase it through possessions or fame, the powerful achieve it through creation. You die twice, once when your body stops breathing, and again when your name is spoken for the last time. The rich die once, the powerful die twice, slowly. But those who build legacy, they never die at all. They live on in systems that still function, in books still read, in names still spoken. Legacy is immortality disguised as impact. From power to eternity. The Machiavellian understands one thing: wealth is the beginning of power, not the end. The end game is to bend time, to design a future that still bears your fingerprints long after you're gone. That's why true masters build systems that can't be erased, brands that can't be ignored, and ideas that can't be killed. Because power without legacy is just a spark. Legacy turns that spark into a flame that burns across generations. The final lesson, So here's the ultimate law of power. The poor leave behind memories. The rich leave behind money. The powerful leave behind history. Your goal isn't just to build wealth, it's to build something that lasts beyond you. Because when you master that, you've not only won the game of money, you've beaten time itself. Closing. You've just walked through the real laws of power and fast wealth. Laws most people never dare to face. Remember, fortune doesn't wait. Power doesn't apologize. And legacy doesn't forgive the timid. The choice is yours. Stay safe and invisible, or step into the arena where history remembers your name. Because in the end, the world doesn't honor the hardest workers or the smartest planners. It remembers the ones who took control, acted boldly, used leverage, and left something behind that time couldn't erase. That's the Machiavellian way. Not just to live powerfully, but to live forever.